Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very special edition of the University Series. Today, we're having a fireside chat on what is open banking, and we're receiving Pascal from Desjardins, who will tell us more about this very interesting subject. My name is Karina Riviello, the University Liaison at FinTech Cadence, and as usual, I will be your host for today. So, Pascal, I will invite you over. Please come and join me on screen.
Hi, Karina.
Hi, Pascal. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, super happy to have you on. So people at home probably know what Desjardins is, I'm pretty sure, but maybe you don't know who you are. And so I wanted maybe tell us more on what you do at Desjardins. What do you do?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm in charge of innovation subject like open banking. Open banking will impact le Mouvement Desjardins and what we need to put in place. And I work also on another interesting subject. It's about cryptocurrency and central bank digital currency and what is coming in the world and in Canada.
Interesting. It's a very trending topic. I think a lot of people who are following fintech news right now are following very closely to see what's going to happen with crypto. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Thank you for inviting me today. I wanted to give a disclaimer that today I will share my opinion and it won't reflect necessarily the opinion of Mouvement Desjardins. And I will try to be share as much as I know about open banking and what I can see on in the industry.
Of course, definitely, and there's a lot to say, and of course, there's different perspectives. So happy to know that what you're sharing really is your opinions, and you're not a Desjardins representative today. So let's deep dive in the subject right now. I think the first question that probably comes up in people's mind when they talk about open banking is first, what is open banking, and also why is it so important? So, floor is yours, Pascal.
It's very interesting, Yeah, you could see all around the world, especially in European Union, that the consumer want to own their data, and it's a right to own their data. And we could see in European Union, in UK especially, that UK government push bank to open their consumer data because the consumer have on this data. And it's open banking. It's in one word. It's this thing. It's the consumer on his data. And now, how can the consumer can share his data with other financial institution, fintech? He could share it through API, and meaning that fintech and financial institution need to put in place some standard, some tool to be able to share between financial institutions in a secure way their consumer data. But there is one crucial role. It's the financial institution, fintech can't share the data if they don't have the approval, the right from the customer. Pascal, I want to share my data from Desjardins to another financial institution. I will give Desjardins the right to share my data to any fintech. For example, as we can see, TD, Wealthsimple, and other financial institution or fintech.
Okay, interesting. So you're talking about quickly. You mentioned regulations around open banking. Right now in Canada, what do those regulations look like? And how does this compare to other countries around the world in terms of regulation?
It's very interesting. Canada watch a lot what happened in the world, and we have different kind of regulation all around the world. In Europe, it's more government lead. Australia is very government lead. In US, it's totally industry lead, and in Canada, we are trying to figure out. But what we could see, it will probably be hybrid, meaning that the industry will lead the standard, will put in place what need to be put in place and develop. And the government will have a look what will happen to protect the consumer. And I think it will be oriented more like that in Canada. It will be a hybrid approach. Take the best of European Union and the best of US and to be in the middle.
Okay, so make the best of how we can, right? Okay, interesting. So since the regulations are not exactly here in Canada right now, like who owns the financial data? Is it the consumer? Is it the bank? Or is it fintechs when you're sharing it with fintech? Like who owns the data? And if open banking was to really have clear regulations in Canada, how would this change?
Now it's very interesting. Canada are putting some law in place, especially in federal with the law of C61, the law to who protects the data of consumer and who put a strict rule how you can use the data and what are the sanctions if a company have any data leak. And in Quebec, it's a project of Law 64. It's the same thing. It's very close to the one were put in place in European Union with the GDPR in European Union. And this law will protect the consumer. This is one of the things. And the second thing, because we have this foundation, the government of Canada, Quebec government, and other province will be able to put in place some rule for open banking. And right now it's still blurry, but definitely with open banking, it will be the consumer who owns the data, meaning it's the consumer. If the consumer wants to share his data, he will be able to do it. If he don't want to share the data to another financial institution, he will have the right to not share it. And financial institution fintech will be the provider of the data that the consumer have with this financial institution or this fintech startup.
So technically, right now, the financial data belongs to the financial institution, right?
In some way, yes, but it's still blurry because, the consumer have a way to extract this data using screen scraping, even if it's not recommended. But the consumer can still use his data to connect with any product, fintech product on the market right now.
Okay, so screen scraping is that little access they can use to connect to Wealthsimple or whatever other application they want. Instead, can you tell me more about the screen scraping? And usually, how would a fintech access your financial data?
Yes, a lot of consumers don't know that, but what will happen when they give a credential to any company who are doing screen scraping? There is a couple of one. We have one of the leader here in Quebec, Flinks. They are giving the access. And what Flinks will do, any aggregator like Plaid, any other one, they will take your credential, for example, from Desjardins, TD, BMO. They will simulate it like it was you, Karina, will go to your bank account at Desjardins, and it will capture all your information from Desjardins account. He will click to your saving account, checking account, your credit card, and it will capture all this information. And this information he will store in his database. He will classify the data in order to provide this useful information to any service, fintech service that will need this information. For example, we have one of the app here in Quebec, Moka. Moka are doing rounding. And Moka, what do they need? They need to see what is your spending. Every time you go to a store and you buy your food, your grocery food, and your bill, your bill are I don't know, $50.50. The 50 cents, they want to know that they can invest these 50 cents and take this 50 cents to your bank account and invest it in fund to help you to reach your financial goal. And Moka needs this information, and they are using a service like Flinks and Plaid to have this information.
Okay, interesting. So so right now the regulations are not very clear in Canada, but if tomorrow there were to have clear regulations on open banking, how would banks be ready? Would fintechs be ready? How would this affect them either positively or negatively?
I want to say that there is no way to be ready. Bank will need to be ready. Fintech need to be ready. The government will give some time for bank and financial institution and fintech to be ready, to be compliant, and to be certified that they have a high standard of protection of data. This is very important. And but I have something to say. Even if bank or fintech don't want to be ready, they have no choice. The train already left the train station. We have no choice, and it's in the interest of the consumer. And bank, fintech, startup want to help the consumer. That's why when there will be regulation, bank want to be ready, and they will be ready. And they are starting right now, and fintech are starting right now to see what will be the best practice. And the best practice is to stop and to avoid screen scraping, because you can have some risk, and to be able to put in place API to transfer the information in a secure way between financial institution, fintech, and between financial institution. And fintech are working on this thing, and financial institution are working on this thing, in order for when the regulation will be ready, for the financial institution and fintech to be ready.
Okay, interesting. So it is happening right now. So there are already innovations. Like you say, they're using the back door to access your information. So it's a step further. They'll have to be ready, and they'll have some time for that. So that's interesting. I'd be curious to know, like, in countries where regulations are already in place around open banking, like, are there more innovations, like in fintech and in finance? And what do these innovations kind of look like?
We could see with UK that he brought more competition, and also all across the world, especially in Asia, he brought a lot of competition and innovation, because there is this fintech who are in this small niche, who help you to achieve your goal. There is a couple of examples. Some people, in US, in Canada, who are working a lot on credit scoring. And sometimes credit scoring, it's not good for people who had bad debt in the past, but now they have good habit of saving, etc. But they are still penalized. And with this fintech, some fintech help you to rebuild your credit score, and to manage your credit score in order to have access to credit. And this thing happen all across the world. There is a couple of innovation due to open banking. The best example, it's with COVID. The UK government was able, thanks to open banking, to put in place the right measure to support a little business, to know what are the financial situation of small business, because they connect to this API, and couple of fintech were able to create an API, an app, to give to the UK government what are the situation right now. Because usually they have to conduct some study. Now they have the data that are available right now. If I want to know how is the situation of small business all across UK, the UK government are able to do that thanks to open banking.
You kind of read my mind, Pascal. I was gonna ask, like, how can these innovations really help underserved communities? But like, you're right, by creating all this competition, clearly it leads these innovations to help the underserved communities. So that's very interesting. Another question for you, and it's kind of a curiosity for me also, like, who's interested by using these fintech applications. When I'm using these fintech applications, example, if I wanted to connect to Wealthsimple, because there's no clear regulation, what happens to my financial data? What am I secure? Like, am I like letting go of this security, since I'm actually taking my data and giving it to a third party? Can you like walk me through to what happens to this data?
Yes, any financial institution, any fintech have a strict rule, and they have to protect the data, because otherwise they may have some issue. But the problem is all the way they getting the data, screen scraping. You give your login and password. And this thing is very problematic, especially for financial institution, because it's a way, if this login and password get hacked, yeah, your financial institution may have some issue, fintech may have some issue, even if they are not responsible. And that's why your financial institution don't recommend to use screen scraping, and they tolerate them, but they don't recommend it because this practice is not very secure. That's why everyone wants the open banking regulation coming, that it will come soon, because this way we'll be able to exchange information through API, even if we are working already on it to exchange in the secure way. A lot of last year financial institution, big financial institution, and fintech signed an agreement to use standard FDX. It's a US standard for who defines the way we exchange data through API. It's an API standard from US.
Okay. So we see there's a bit of movement. But so you say that these regulations are super important because it will actually bring this framework of security for users that do already use these applications, even if technically it's not legal. So what's taking so long? What are the roadblocks, and why is Canada not moving forward with these regulations?
Yes, it's we have the second consultation in December, and the first consultation of open banking in federal, it was in 2019, and we had the report in 2020. It takes time. The government took time, but I think the government didn't expect that we'll have the COVID crisis. And when COVID crisis happened, the government had a lot of things to handle on their plate, on their table, and they have to support the Canada economy, and they have to support the Canada consumer, citizen, and that's why open banking project it's a priority, but I think it was not the main priority. The main priority was to support the economy, and I'm sure that it will happen. It takes time, and we can see that they are interested about it because there were a second consultation at the end of 2020, and we're waiting to have the conclusion of Finance Canada regarding this second consultation and to have direction where it will go.
Okay. So it's moving. But then my last question for you, which is kind of a trick question because I know you can't see the future, but when do you predict open banking will happen in Canada?
It's a good question. It will depend from the regulator. And when I'm talking about regulators, the federal and provincial regulator, we hope that it will come soon. We are waiting for the report for Finance Canada and to see the regulations that will put in place. What I can tell you is every regulator are working on it. They are very interested to see. They want to put directions. They are looking to what is happening in other jurisdictions like Europe, Australia, US, etc. I hope it will happen in the next 2-3 years. But when I don't have a crystal ball, it will depend on the advancement of the regulation. But what I can tell you, it's financial institution already working on it. Fintech are working on it, and I'm confident that it will happen sooner than later.
Well, let's cross our fingers. 3 years is still a bit long, but I mean, I'm sure they're doing the most that they can. And you're right, the COVID was it fell out of nowhere. So most of us had to adapt, and hopefully we'll adapt sooner than later. So thank you.
I hope it will come sooner, and we hope everyone will come sooner. The profit of consumer and for the security to anyone.
Yeah, definitely. There's so much security issues also with this subject. I mean, for consumers, it can only be positive.
Well, yes, and they will put role for this small player. What will be the minimum need for accreditation? Or they will accredit, and it will be less blurry for all these entrepreneurs who want to change the financial industry and to create innovation. It's a win-win.
Definitely, and and it is a few missed opportunities we're having right now with regulations not being closed. I mean, there's the example of Revolut who had to leave, who were doing great things in Canada also, but decided to leave Canada because of regulation. So hopefully this will bring new tech in, and as you say, like it can only be positive especially for consumers. It can only be positive. Pascal, thank you so much. I think it's a very exciting subject, even though regulations can be sometimes hard to understand and grasp. I think you had a great way of explaining all that we had to know. For participants at home who found this interesting or who wanted to know more about open banking, I hope this helped you. And also, if people are interested, we actually have a challenge that is linked to open banking this year, the Formaton. So if you're interested, go see our website. We have a very exciting challenge coming up in just actually starting this today. So anyways, thank you, Pascal, for being here with us today. And I wish you a great end of day. And I wish people at home also a great end of day.
Thank you, Karina.